Alrighty, it has been a while since I've uploaded, and I apologise for that, but it has come to that time of the year where everyone is posting their end of year list, their top 20 albums, top whatever albums of the year, and I gotta say, it is freaking hot right here in Australia right now, because, it's actually quite late at night here, and if you can hear that little whir in the background, that is a fan. That is gonna stay on because I cannot survive in here. I would like aircon in my music studio and study, but unfortunately can't have that. So the fan is staying on while I film this. Otherwise, I will die. But yeah, I've been super busy this year. I haven't been uploading to YouTube very much, which is unfortunate. But I never miss this kind of stuff for the end of the year. So I honestly think this year, 2024, was probably the year where I have checked out the most or listened to either fully or partial the most EPs and albums I ever have in a full year. All the way up till maybe the start of December, I pretty much stayed on top of like 95% of releases. So this year I have been very harsh in my rankings in objectively getting what albums I think will make it to the ranking stage. So if you haven't ever seen one of these videos before and you're new to my channel, I am a bit of a bloody music nerd. So what I do is I take 10 musical criteria and I rank the albums, each musical criteria, I rank the albums, I can't talk, I rank the musical criteria from the albums out of 10, and then I average it over the 9 musical criteria, and I get a score average score out of 10. And that way it keeps it a little more unbiased, a little bit more objective. And yes, I know music, of course, is still very subjective to a large degree, but this is the way I like to do it, in my way my brain works, the way I analyse music, because I grew up analysing music in school and doing musicology and learning how to do that in school. So that's kind of the way I do things. So nevertheless, I'm going to shut the cup and jump into our top 20 albums of 2024. Buckle in. Hopefully some of these you haven't seen, hopefully some of these you haven't heard, hopefully some of them you have because they're freaking awesome. But if you haven't, then this will be hopefully releasing middle to late of the New Year's Eve, so get around to it depending on what time of the year, what time zone you live in. At number 20 we have Upon Stone with Dead Mother Moon. I gave this 7 out of 10, and this is a melodic death metal album, a really cool kind of old school throwback melodic death, I would say, in the veins of kind of like At the Gates, that kind of old school Slaughter of the Soul, very old school kind of guitar tone, gritty, fast melodic death. Yeah, man, really cool album. Favorite song on the track? Quite hard because there's quite a lot of good songs on the record, but I would probably have to say out of probably the first 3 songs, probably Dead Mother Moon, Onyx Through the Heart, and My Destiny, A Weapon. Probably those are my favourite 3 tracks, or my favourite ones on this album. Alright, moving forward to number 19, we have Disarray with Religious Disease, and I also gave this a 7 out of 10. Now this is a thrash metal album, a very old school kind of thrash metal album. Again, a very raw, very kind of straight to the point thrash metal album. Yeah, a really good fun one with some cool riff work on this album. Again, very raw, very intense vocal work on this record. In terms of my favourite song on this album, I probably would have to say, maybe Bound to Kill or the title track. Yeah, some really cool work, especially in Bound to Kill. I like that shorter, kind of straight to the point, hardcore hitting thrash. But yeah, another cool, great thrash record. And yeah, check that one out if you haven't gotten around to it yet. Moving on to number 18, and keeping it in the vein of thrash metal, we have Suicidal Angels with Profane Prayer. I also gave this one a 7 out of 10, funnily enough. And this one is, you know, if you haven't heard of these guys are Greek thrash metal from Greece. Some really cool melodic work on this album, a little bit more melodic than their previous album. They've always kind of had that melodicness to their thrash. This one has taken the melodic roots a little, extending it a little further. Still very thrashy, still very fast at times, but they also have some slower, more melodic moments, which I don't mind. I prefer them at their more hard-hitting, thrashier stuff. That's just my opinion. But again, another really fantastic record, some really cool moments on this album, and again, they do use the melodic, I was going to say melodic and I messed it up. They do use the melodies and harmonies quite well in this album. Just for me, I think it's a little over the top in places, and I would prefer to have a little more of that, you know, that hard-hitting straight thrash that I think they're a little bit better at. But again, overall, great album. Number 18 of the year. Favorite song? Crypts of Madness or Purified by Fire. Just really cool kind of riff changes and patterns they use in those songs. Yeah, definitely check that one out if you're a thrash fan. You won't regret it. Some really cool moments on that album. Alright, moving to number 17 of the year, we have Storm Upon the Masses with Crusher of Souls. I gave this a 7.1 out of 10, and these guys are death metal. Some people even almost say brutal death metal, but I wouldn't really class them as brutal death metal. Maybe a bit of influences or instances here and there in the vocal area, but more death metal, I would say. I believe they are from the Netherlands. Correct me if I'm wrong. I am not looking that up right now because I'm trying to keep this video relatively flowy, relatively short, and so everyone can, you know, get through it and find out some really cool new records, or find out if their favourite records of the year have been on my list as well. But yeah, 7.1 out of 10. A really cool, almost, I wouldn't say different, but they have an approach that, as I said, they have an inkling of brutal death metal, but more so that old school death metal sound. Some cool riff work on this record. My favourite track on the album would probably have to be Cauldron of Carnage. Just a really sick riff that's very memorable right now, that I can, just looking at the tracks, I remember that song being one of my favourites. So, oh yeah, if you like some cool out there death metal, give that one a check out. Alright, we're moving on to number 16 of the year, and we have some melodic death metal from Australia with Orpheus Omega and their album Emberglow. I gave this one a 7.2 out of 10, and this one is a really cool, as I said, Aussie melodic death metal record. Very, I guess, reminiscent of, what's the band I was thinking of when I was checking it out earlier? It was like kind of like a bit of, I guess, a little bit of Night Rage, a bit more of that kind of that melodicness, fastness, but they also have the catchy melodic clean side, and they do have a lot of cleans on this. I wouldn't say a lot, but there is clean vocals mixed with obviously that harsher vocals, which I don't mind. I think personally I prefer the harsher stuff on this record. That's just my preference, and I think maybe like revisiting where they're using the cleans would elevate this record even higher. But a really great sounding record production, was quite good. Again, use of melody, patterns, and it flowed fairly well. Overall, a very solid melodic death album from Orpheus Omega. Favourite track would have to be probably Marionette, or the title track, which is also also a great song. Yeah. Anyway, we're going to move on to our number 15th record of the year, and we have Aberrance with Son of Dirt. I also gave this 7.2 out of 10. And these guys are death metal / deathcore. That's how I would describe them. A lot of other people I've said online have death metal / groove metal, but I don't know if I would agree with that. I mean, there's instances of groove metal, but to me, there's more of a core sound mixed with a kind of a more standard death metal kind of sound. But a really cool album that kind of flew under the radar for many. I have seen no one talk about this. To be fair, I haven't seen many people talk about most of these albums in the end of year list. So, do with that information what you will. But this one definitely not their first album or debut album at all, but like a really kind of cool riff fest, a bit of that hardcore, deathcore influence kind of coming out. Really kind of fun, just bang your head, kind of an easy one to listen to, get through. It's not super long. The songs are relatively all generally kind of short, but yeah, pretty cohesive overall. Good fun song. Good fun album. Favorite song. I really should have brought a drink in. So if I cough, that's why. Because my mouth is dry. Favorite song on the album, I would probably say it would be, The Silent Enemy or Irradiate. Can't read. I'm blind, by the way. Because I do this to my computer screen. Alright, that is number 15. We're going to move on to number 14 of the year. We have Head Sick with Caligo. If I mess up any pronunciations, please go easy on me. Or slap me a new one in my DMs, whatever. Melodic death metal. This is a really, really cool album. I really enjoyed going back and listening to this one. Some really cool... I'm going to say, production-wise, this is probably one of the really, really, really good sounding albums this year. That's just kind of what popped in my head, just like thinking of this album. Production-wise, sounds really, really cool. Great use of melody, some good speed work in there, some slower moments, but overall, really kind of pretty solid melodic death metal album. Favorite song would be I Begin, I End, I Rule. Just really cool track. Really cool riff. Yeah. And moving on, we are, I believe, keeping it very melodic death. With number 13th of the year, we have Darkness Everywhere with To Conquer Eternal Damnation. Now, I gave this a 7.3 out of 10. Now, this is also a very old school, kind of raw, melodic death metal album. Very fast, very straight to the point. Again, kind of similar to the Upon Stone melodic death album in that old school kind of feel. And yeah, just a really kind of fun, fast, thrashy melodic death album. Got that raw, intense feelings throughout the whole record. Favorite track on the album is very hard because they're all kind of similar-ish, which is probably my only gripe with the album, is that it's very... what's the word? Not monotone, but it kind of blends a little bit together, as in there's not a lot of peaks and valleys on the album. Not saying there isn't at all, but I would like a little bit more, I guess, not variation, I suppose, just a little more, peaks and valleys on the album. But as I said, all the songs are kind of similar. They're all good, they're just all kind of similar. And for that reason, I can't think of my favourite song right now. Probably The Final Descent. Or To Conquer, or the title track, To Conquer Eternal Damnation. That one I remember is sticking out to me. So yeah, if you like that old school death metal feel, that really kind of raw, hard-hitting stuff, go check out Darkness Everywhere. Alright, now we're moving up to number 12 of the year with Unhallowed Deliverance and their album of Spectres and Strife. Now, I also gave this one a 7.3 out of 10. These guys are, I would describe them as like technical death metal / deathcore. Very much leaning into that deathcore sound, especially vocal-wise and riff-wise, but very much also a technical death metal album as well. They mix those influences pretty damn well, in my opinion. A really, really well put together, cool album. I can't remember if it's a debut album or not, but if it is, really fucking great debut album. Yeah, some really, really cool riff work, vocals, really good, drums, great. Shout out to my mate, who's the drummer in Unhallowed Deliverance. Favorite track, probably We Slither or Hope Drowning. Hope Drowning has this kind of melodic riff that kind of transforms into this really cool breakdown-ish almost pattern, and We Slither is just this fast, kind of hard-hitting song that's really cool. Yeah, if you're into some kind of interesting stuff that mixes deathcore in without being like too like cliche, boring deathcore, definitely check this one out. Definitely one of the best in this kind of that genre mix-up kind of sound of the year. So check that one out. Alright, keeping with that kind of brutalness, we are going on to number 11. And we have Flagra with Plant-Based Anatomy. Now, I think that's how you pronounce the band name. Flagra. Flaghgra. Flagra. 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 I don't know. Whatever. This is a technical and brutal death metal album. Some could name it slam. I would say it's more on that technical, so that's brutal death metal side, that just visceral kind of brutal sound. I gave this a 7.4 out of 10. Now, brutal death metal is brutal death metal. You don't really get that much variation with brutal death metal, which is interesting to have it this high on my list. I'm generally not a massive, crazy brutal death metal fan, purely because a lot of it sounds the fucking same. Like, let's be honest, brutal death metal doesn't branch out that much, especially slam stuff. Slam all sounds the same, let's be honest. You can get triggered, you can disagree with me, but unless you show me evidence that provides justification otherwise, I'm going to tell you, most brutal death metal, most slam sounds very, very similar, because it's all based around this kind of rhythmic, I guess, standard, not standard, but, you know, it's very, very similar. But this album, it branches out with a bit more melody, with a little bit more thought into it. It's not just slam after slam after slam after slam. Like, you do get a lot of slams, you do get a lot of breakdowns, you get a lot of brutal death metal stuff. But it's not just that. And it's very straight to the point. It sounds great, production-wise. Overall, a very solid album if you're into that side of music, into that more extreme kind of stuff, that slammy, brutal tech kind of shit. Favorite track, Solar Recharge, probably just has my favorite riff on the record. But yeah, if you're into that kind of stuff, definitely check that one out if you haven't already, because best of the year in that genre, in my opinion. All right, let's move on to the top 10. Woo woo woo! We have Torture. Please, hopefully, I'm pronouncing that right. With Arcane Magicae, and I gave this a 7.5 out of 10. A really cool melodic death / thrash metal album. So melodic death mixed with thrash metal, mixed with a couple of little other influences there, but they're the majority. Mostly melodic death with hints of thrash. A really, really well put together album. Sounds really great, really cohesive. Some really, really fun moments littered through some fast, heavy-hitting brutality. And they don't shy away on the melodic death as well. You know, they have that thrash metal influence in there, which is really cool, which I quite like. Favourite song on the album would probably be... Well, it's hard, because I like them all. Like, My Dearest Friend. Actually, the first song, There's a Witch Among Us, is really cool. Otherwise, I'd probably have to say, like, a Rat Shaman is also a really good song. But yeah, a really, really cool one that I kind of saw some people talking about when it came out, but then like just radio silence. It's like, okay, whatever. Revisiting it, I was like, wow, really good, definitely going to be up there. Yep, and it was. Alright, let's move on to number 9, and we have Benighted with Ekbom, and I gave this a 7.6 out of 10. Now, these guys don't really need any introduction, to be fair. They are death metal / grindcore, brutal death metal, whatever. They mix a few of those genres, whatever you want to call them. But their sound revolves around that death metal, grindcore, kind of sound. Now, I said these guys are no early enterers or no amateurs to the extreme metal scene. One of my I guess, not favourites, but they're up there in terms of this kind of sound. Really, really, really cool. Just brutality mixed with this kind of, I'd say atmosphere, but not atmosphere in like a weird, crappy, boring, doom, droney way. Atmosphere in like a hard-hitting, creepy way, you know? Benighted. If you know Benighted, you know what I mean. It's kind of that similar vein of Benighted. They don't branch out crazy ridiculously from what you'd expect, but like quality-wise, very, very solid. Production-wise, sounds great. Did a good job there with everything. Yeah, just another really solid album from Benighted. Like, really enjoyed this one all year. Favorite track, honestly, Nothing Left to Fear featuring Ollie from Arch. Like, I am not an Archwire fan, really, at all. I've never really dug their music, but Nothing Left to Fear featuring him is probably like one of my favorite songs on this record. It just has this. Oh, sorry. As I was saying, Nothing Left to Fear is probably one of my favorite tracks on the album, just because of that hard-hitting kind of crazy, grindy groove. Outside of that, I would have to say probably Morgue is my other favorite song on the album. All right. Moving forward to number 8, and we have Blood Red Throne with Nonagon, and I gave this an 8 out of 10. Now, these guys are crazy, awesome, old school death metal, or just death metal, but that old school sound. Now, if you know anything about me, you'll know that Blood Red Throne are my favourite death metal band of all time, and you may go, well, number 8 is a little bit high on the list, and yes, a little bit, compared to their previous release, Imperial Congregation in 2021. In 21, that album was the album of my year. It was number 1, and I gave that, I think it was a 9 out of 10, or a 9.2, or 9.3 out of 10. So, objectively, the last album, in my opinion, was better than this current one, Nonagon. But, again, still a really, really, really great, solid release. Realistically, I just think the album before was better overall. I think it was a little more cohesive, a little stronger in terms of like structure and songwriting. I think one of the things here they've got a new vocalist. It's the first album with a new vocalist, which is always difficult, right? Especially when you've had a vocalist for quite a few years and quite a few album cycles, which they did previously. It's not to say that the new vocals aren't good or the new vocalist isn't good. He is really good. But I believe that he had to rewrite all the lyrics, or a lot of the lyrics, which again is always hard, and I think is probably the biggest thing which kind of contributed to the, what would I say, the album not being as cohesively lyrically and vocally as I think previously it has been. And again, that's like super reasonable. Like, if you got to rewrite a whole album worth of lyrics or whatever, you know, that's going to have some sort of an effect. Which, because it's not an easy task, you know, it's just something that is a thing, and that's alright. It's, as I said, it's still a fantastic album. I'm just trying to give you a little bit of justification in case people, and you know, Blood Red Throne members, I'm friends and, you know, fans of all the musicians in the band, because I was so in love with that Imperial Congregation record, I gave it a 9 out of 10. This is an 8 out of 10, so it's a whole, whatever, one score lower. So that's kind of my justification why this isn't as good as the previous record. But again, as I said, still a fantastic flippin' death metal album. As I said, it's like one of the best still of this year. Number 8 of the year is, again, no small feat. Favorite track probably would be Every Silent Plea. Or Ode to the Obscene. I love the melodic, kind of heavy melodic part, riff at the start of that song. But yeah, really cool album. Go check that out if you haven't already. Alright, moving on to number 7, we have Sable Hills with Odyssey. I also gave this an 8 out of 10. Now this one is kind of it popped up out of nowhere a little bit. Like, I remember checking this out and going, this is really cool, but revisiting it for my ranking, I was like, what? This is ridiculously good. And it's so good, it's got a number 7 of the year, which I was like, maybe it'll slip in towards the back of the top 20 after the first track. And I was like, after a couple of tracks, I was like, no, this is like fucking good. So these guys are melodic death / metalcore from Japan. You know, really have that core kind of riffage and breakdowns in there, but very much influenced by melodic death metal as well. Really, really fantastic sounding album. Like, props to whoever did the production on this. Mixing and mastering was really, really good. Just kind of helps bring the album all together and really make it feel like a cohesive package. Some really cool riff work. Again, if you're fans of like kind of that like Unearth kind of sound, they actually have a song, No Turning Back, I believe, featuring Unearth. Don't know who from Unearth, but yeah, really cool album, man. Go check it out. Number 1, 2, 3, Misfortune, or 4, Battle Cry. Misfortune and Battle Cry are probably my two favorite tracks on the record. They just have some of the coolest riff patterns and breakdowns on the album. But yeah, a really cohesive, fun, flippin' good sounding album, man. Just, you know, I don't really care what kind of genre you're into. It's a good album, regardless of whether you're into more melodic side or more metalcore side. Go check it out. You'll not regret it. Really fun, really cohesive, awesome freaking album. Number 7 of the year. Alright, moving on to the top 6. And at number 6, we have Dawn of Decline with Steel for Flesh. These guys are technical death metal. Now, this one also kind of popped up a little bit out of nowhere. I've seen no one talking about this, which is crazy, because revisiting it, I was like, wow, this is a really, really, really well put together technical album. Like, some really cool song parts in this, like some really cool stuff structurally and songwriting wise, but also sounds really good, but also very technical without getting like wankery with it, because I know a lot of tech death bands can't talk. A lot of tech death, to be fair, it's really late here, but I just want to get it filmed. Oh, it's cool, because it's actually cooler late at night than it is when I get up in the morning, which is shit. It's Australian summer for you. But this technical side of it doesn't lose the brutality that makes the album stand out. You know what I mean? Like, it's not wankery to the point of like it's just overly technical, to the point where you lose that groove, you lose the catchiness, you lose the cohesiveness. This album doesn't do that. This album has the greatness of all the death metal and the greatness of all the technical extreme side. Really cool record. Go check it out. Great job, guys, in Dawn of Decline. Favourite track on the album is probably Cult. Or actually, I may lie. Or Behind the Mask. Or the title track, Steel for Flesh. Actually, I think Steel for Flesh was probably my favourite. Anyway, really good. It's kind of like no bad songs. I mean, it's number 6 of the year. Pretty much all the songs from here on out aren't bad. They're just like, raw, subjectively, this is not as good as this one. Alright, moving on. Because I'm going to ramble too much about this video, way too long. I wanted to cut it in like a quarter less than last year's video, just because, you know, waffling on, people don't watch the whole thing, and it's like, well, what's the point? Anyway, if you're still here, and you've watched every single muttering, stupid word I've said, appreciate you. Hit the subscribe button, if you're not already. Alright, number 5 of 2024, we have Severe Torture with Torn from the Jaws of Death. 8.2 out of 10 is what I ranked it. Really good death metal album, really good old school death metal album. One of their first full length in quite a while. Can't remember how long it is. But man, just really cool death metal. If you like that old school sound, if you just love death metal in general, go check it out. If you haven't already, what the fuck are you even doing? Let's be honest. Favorite track, Marked by Blood and Darkness. Really cool album. Really cool song, sorry. Also, I think Through Pain and Emptiness is my other favourite song on the album. But yeah, there's like really kind of nothing bad on this album. It's just like what I wanted to hear back from them when they got back together. It's like, this is it. They put out an EP which is kind of average. It wasn't bad, it wasn't great. This is great. This is good fucking shit. Death metal fans, go check it out. If you haven't already, as I said, what the fuck are you doing? Alright, moving on to number 4 of the year, and we have Bleeder's Lament with Populous Artifice. Now, a bit of a, what do you call, asterisk kind of thing. For those who know me, yes, this is my band. And you're going to be like, that's biased. Well, yeah, to a degree. But the way I do things, again, ranking it all objectively, I try to be as unbiased as possible and objective as possible. Of course, things that slip in here and there. But I do genuinely believe, listening to it and ranking it, you know, with all the other albums that I thought were great this year, I genuinely believe that this deserves to be in the top 20 albums of the year. Because I genuinely just think it's, you know, a very solid piece of work, and I'm proud of it. So, yeah, death metal from Australia, from Brisbane. It's mostly me. I don't want to talk too much about it because, you know, go check it out if you haven't already. But yeah, it features Robin Stone, obviously from a whole cool band, Psychroptic, Brain's Not Working Now, heaps of other bands, and also Freddie Bolso from Blood Red Throne on drums. So, you know, man, if you like death metal, if you like your old school kind of stuff, a bit of thrashy death metal, give that one a whirl. Let me know what you think. But I think it's that good that it holds itself up well in the top 10 albums of the year. So that's why I put that there. Alright, let's move on to number 3. We have Concrete Age with Motherland. Now, again, another freaking awesome album that is like ridiculously good and I've seen no one talk about. These guys are melodic death / folk metal. Now, really cool kind of folk metal, not like that, you know, when you think folk metal, you think pirates, you think Vikings, blah, 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 Scandinavian. No. Other side folk metal, like that, what was I saying? I think that border of East Europe and like Western Asia, that Caucasus, I think they call it. If I'm wrong, you know, smack me. Sorry, guys. But the way they blend melodic death, and it's like not melodic death like slow melodic death, it's like melodic death like hard, fast, thrashy melodic death with some really cool folk elements. Oh man, it's like really fun album. You just want to dance, but it also makes you want to bang your head like and smack the wall and break it and like break your own self in the process. Like it's really, really fun album. What did I give this? Sorry, I gave it an 8.3 out of 10 because it's good. It's fantastic album. Favorite song probably is Mestizo. Oh, actually no, Caracol. Some of these are obviously like the, you know, the folk elements naming system, so I'm probably butchering the fuck out of them. Apologies for that, but dude, I don't really care if you don't really like the folk element of things. It's like that good that even if you're not into it, you're still going to have fun with it because it's that well put together. And if you don't, your taste in music just probably sucks. I don't make the rules. Alright, moving forward, we have 2 more left, and these ones are fantastic freaking albums. At number 2, the second best album of the year, in my opinion, we have Disangelium with Jonestown, 8.4 out of 10. Now this is a really cool death metal album. I wouldn't say old school, I wouldn't say modern death metal. It's a bit of a mix of the two. Now these guys are from, this is a Czech death metal, I think. And Jonestown is about, I don't know if I would call it a concept album. I think it might be, only because obviously it's titled Jonestown, but a lot of the songs on the actual album are kind of all revolving around that. So I want to go ahead and say yes, it was a is a concept album. Essentially, it's this kind of like weird religious cult leader, and this remote setting in the where was it? It was like Guyana. I'm probably pronouncing that really badly, but it's essentially about that kind of religious cult, about them all committing mass suicide kind of thing. But it just does this such a good job at like reeling. What's that? Wheeling you in, room on a bike. No, but reeling you in to the whole concept, the whole atmosphere. It has this cohesiveness from start to finish that is just amazing, and some really, really, really cool groovy riffs, like groovy death metal. Doesn't shy away from a bit of that melodicness that gets put in here and there, but it's done really masterfully in a way that complements the overall concept, theme, and idea of the album. And just a really, really well put together album. Reminds me of kind of like that early, old school, like God Dethroned kind of maybe a bit of early hackneyed, early to middle hackneyed. Yeah, kind of just that old school death metal, but it has that modern-ish groovy vibe to it that's not overplayed. It's just a great, great, great balance. So you know, check that one out. And you can't go wrong. Alright, the album of the year. At number 1, we have Cyanide with Vertigo, and I gave this 8.4 out of 10. These guys are melodic death groove metal outfit, and they are really freaking good. Like, this album, firstly, sounds amazing. Probably the best sounding album of the year. And it's a coincidence that it's number 1. You know, not necessarily the best sounding album is always number 1. It obviously helps it, but you could have like the best sounding album just production wise at number 2 or 3. Because again, each musical criteria gets their own score, and overall, you know, certain one could outrank over all the other ones. But this is probably one of the best sounding records of the year. Everything kind of just flows really well. As I said, it has that groovy melodic deathness, that fast kind of thrashy grooveness to it. It has that brutality as well. As I said, it's on that harder spectrum of melodic death metal. Some really cool, hard-hitting, catchy, groovy riffs. Just some really, really, really well put together work. Really fun album that, again, I've seen like no one talking about. Empire's Down, Inertia, and Human Republic, my favourite tracks on the record. Again, no bad songs. The whole top 6 of this year has like no bad songs on them. And this, again, Vertigo, the title track too, is fucking amazing. Is no exception. So there we go. There we have it. Your top 20 albums of 2024. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know how many of these you haven't even heard of or checked out. And if you have, let me know whether you agree or disagree. Again, this is mostly about my sharing my passion for music, but also sharing a bit of, you know, feedback and helping others discover new bands that many people or some people may not have even heard of or even gotten around to listening to. As I said, there's been a lot of releases this year. Like, there's always a ton, but I feel like every year it gets more and more. It's just become overwhelming for many people. So I feel like this way, and a lot of people doing YouTube videos and even just lists. Again, I'll post like more of a condensed, summarized version on my socials. One that kind of has more details like this for people who aren't so inclined to listen to a 30-minute video. It's probably only going to be 40 minutes, I'm sorry. And then more of a summarized version that you can easily share. Because I like to cater to all kinds of people. The more visual, the more whatever word. But I feel that this is a way that people can check out releases and go, okay, that made the top 20, it must be decent. Like, no one's putting a really shitty album, generally. I lie, actually, I've seen some shitty albums in top 20 lists already this year. But for the most part, if someone's put an album in their top of the year, it has got to have some redeeming quality factors that you haven't already checked out already. It's probably a good sign that maybe you should, alright? Generally, maybe. So I feel like it's a really good way for people to find releases that I didn't, because it's just there's so many, and you can easily miss some, you know? Like, I almost missed Concrete Age, even though they released an album last year, 2023, that I freaking loved. And I don't think did I include that in the top 20? If not, it must have just missed out, because that was also quite a good album. This one I think is probably touch better, which is why it got number 3 of the year. But yeah, like, I almost missed that one. I didn't see that when that came out, because it's just, you know, we get an overload of music this year, every year, the last few years. But yeah, alright, I'm going to shut the fuck up and stop rambling so I can go to bed and upload this soon, or tomorrow, whatever. Yeah, thanks for listening. If you watch my rambling right to the end, I appreciate you. Big thumbs up, big metal horns, stay metal, and hopefully in the new year, I will get up to uploading a bit more consistently. You know, started a new job in the last few months, and you know, everything's been very busy. You know, the album, and you know, house not moving, just furniture, just stuff, whatever, cleaning, life, work, gym, whatever. I've been very busy with everything. So this is a good, I guess, reset in the New Year's. And hopefully I'll get around to, making some more YouTube content. But otherwise you can find me on my socials on Robbo_reacts. Instagram I post generally pretty frequently. And I will be, again, starting the new year. So yeah, have a good weekend, have a good New Year's, because we'll be posting pretty much on New Year's, or just before New Year's for most people. So have a good New Year's. Here you go, here's 20 albums to check out, listen to while you're drinking for New Year's. Cheers.